Hey folks, welcome into Pro Football Ireland. Monday Morning Football presented by 888 Sport, the official betting partner of the NFL in Ireland and the UK. If you're here listening to us or watching us, you've made it through a pretty incredible weekend, a great Sunday in the NFL. As you can tell by my voice, and if you're on the video, Mr. Mangan's wearing an Irish jersey. It was a great weekend in the rugby as well. But yeah, onwards and upwards. We'll not talk about it. We're not going to jinx anything. Delighted to be joined with Michaela Fagan, Connor Mangan after a really, really exciting NFL Sunday. Michaela, as always, great to see you. How you doing?
I'm good. It was very easy to watch that Sunday because there was a lot of the games went down right to the wire. So it was an exciting week, definitely an improvement from week one and just kind of carrying on from the excitement of week two. So looking forward to what happens next week and what's in store for in the NFL script.
Script would be an interesting word, especially seeing some of these storylines, some of these headlines this week. Connor, going on what Michaela said, just for people listening, bit of a different Monday morning football this week. We've decided to look at the early slate only because there's 9 games. So if you want to talk about the Chiefs games, if you want to talk about the Panthers, talk about the Cowboys and the Sunday night football game, we'll talk about that. Jeff Reinbold, Monday night, 9 p.m. live. So we'll be there. We'll be there very soon. Connor, good to see you though. How you doing, man? You good?
You too. Great to see you. Yeah, the script writers were out in force during these 9 games. They obviously kind of wanted to change it up a little bit from last season, so good for them. And yeah, it was cracking, wasn't it? It was it was insane. Miami, baby. I want to go to Miami. That's what I want to go to. 70
Bienvenido
points in a
a
football
Miami.
match. Not to jump ahead, but 70 points in a football game. Oh my goodness. With 8 minutes to go, and you've taken out half your team, and Waddle didn't even play. Wow.
Like literally for a start, for the Europeans listening to this, watching this, we are 6 weeks out from seeing Patrick Mahomes and Tua in Deutschland. Very, very exciting. Uh, Basically a 70 point with 70 to 20. The victory in terms of the most points ever scored in an NFL game is 73 by the Chicago Bears in 1940 and Washington in the modern era with 72. They had a field goal at the end, and they decided, Mike McDaniel decided not to take it and to move on, which was an interesting
Script
decision, I
writers.
guess. Well, this is it. This is it. I guess, where the hell do we start, Michaela? Like, offensively, this was a masterclass, not just from Tua, but in my opinion, from Mike McDaniel. Some of the plays, the routes, the options that they were given on the offense was a joy to watch. In the first half alone, Tua had a perfect first half where in his first 17 plays, he had an EPA per play of 0.88 perfection, 75.7% of that was the CMP percentage with a quarterback rating of 96.2. Some of the plays were just insane to watch. The fake handoff that he had as well. A very, very, I think for a neutral or for a football fan, regardless of who you support, very, very fun to watch offensively, but defensively as well with Vic Fangio. This is a hell of a team, Mikhail.
It is a hell of a team, but I would be kind of concerned about that they did start off this hot last year and Tua was in the MVP conversation and then they just kind of fizzled out or lost steam towards the end. So I do think they're one of the better teams to start the season, but I'm gonna wait until, they get about 10 games in and see where they are. Um just because like I said, they were this hot last year and they just, didn't really end up going anywhere. But I do agree that the head coach is really showing that he is a good head coach. And, Tua is showing that, he should be in the conversation with kind of Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow that because honestly, like watching, I don't know where the streak ended, but the last I heard, he was 16 of 16, and that's just unheard of to hear a quarterback just make every pass. And that was like, I think that was just before the half, or even it could have been into the third quarter. You just made every pass he thrown. So, but him and Tyreek Hill are definitely the best duo quarterback wide receiver in the league so far this season.
And it was the most points scored in Miami Dolphins history, Connor. I think the previous record was 55. I agree with Michaela's assessment of it's early. I completely agree with that. I guess you'd have people that would say, well, you can only do Connor as best as what you can do week by week. I think back to that game against the Ravens last year where it was an offensive juggernaut for both teams, and both teams are now in similar but enhanced positions, apart from Baltimore, which we'll talk about down the stretch here. But I talked a minute ago about the EPA, about the statistical percentages, but it's so difficult for people outside of Miami, Connor, to understand, I guess, just how much Mike McDaniel has meant to this team, what he's done, and the confidence that he's given to Tua. Because at one point last year, Tua was a guy that could have been out of the league. He could have retired. And now you've got that offensive juggernaut, but you've also got such an efficient run game. They look lethal. And that was without a guy called Jalen Waddle today as well. So for me, as a neutral, I'd be scared to play them over the next few weeks. And I feel like they need to flex that Bills game next week. I know they can't, but they have to do it. I am not missing that game next week. So if I have to miss Trevor Lawrence in London, I might have to look at separate arrangements. But Connor, just your assessment on this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few years ago when Tua was coming out and he had that hip injury, the bad dislocation, there's people saying like he will never play football again in his entire life, and he has shown like last year showed he was great. And then maybe like petered out, as you're saying, Michaela, which kind of agree. Maybe the whole team did a little bit, but Mike McDaniel is I think he can be anyway, a very easy coach to play for. You want to play for Mike McDaniel because he's a personality, he's a character, he's very, very smart about the game. So he's just a guy that's kind of like in your corner, especially if you're bigger personalities like Tyreek Hill and stuff, you feel like Mike McDaniel's in your corner. And he doesn't need to be like a bigger character than them. He's different than them, but they want to play for him. And that's the feeling you get from Miami. You feel like it's a fun place, like last week when he was on halftime and he was like talking to the reporter, and then you noticed the cameraman was kind of following him into the dressing room, and he started racing the cameraman on the way down. And you just feel like, that's a team that went out there and had a blast and had fun and scored 70 points by just throwing around the football. Like no one can cover Tyreek Hill for some reason. Waddle wasn't there, and then Tua was just like virtually unstoppable. So, this was with 8 minutes and 1 second on the clock that they were 70 points up, and like we know, and everyone else listening knows, 8 minutes in the fourth quarter is a lifetime. I think if they pushed it, which they shouldn't, because I know we were talking in our group chat, like take Tua out, let's take people out, let's rest them. If they pushed it, we could have seen 100 points at a football field tonight. I don't doubt that for a second. We could have seen 100 points. And just lastly, quick shout out, that's kind of my assessment of the game. Quick shout out to Deutschland, where you're going to be going, where Miami are going to be going. Rhein-Fire won the European League of Football today. They won 53-34 against Stuttgart. So congrats to Rhein-Fire. Don't want to let them down. Great league in Europe. But yeah, Tua, he's the man. Hill, he's the man, but it's all run with Mike McDaniel.
I feel like we're not going to do the Dolphins justice by talking about them for 7 minutes. I really do, and we will move on. But I feel like we'll come back to it in certain podcasts this week and try and go into more detail on it. I guess the last thing I'll say on the Dolphins is, like at the end of the first half, we talked about their EPA per play, but their EPA per play on first and second down, on early downs with the early rush and early pass was elite. So I'm so excited to see how this team develops over the season. I guess, like, I'm a Broncos fan, but like, I've got to the point now, well, I shouldn't be saying this, in my career where I don't really look at teams like that anymore, which is sad, but I am quite disgusted at the way that they played that game today, especially after the first quarter. But I think it goes way beyond that.
But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, Michael. Like they traded everything to have everything. They have Russell Wilson. They have the quarterback. They have the head coach.
Like, it's like, Connor, if you go back 5 years, like John Elway had the opportunity to bring in Shanahan and potentially bring in some of Shanahan's weapons, including a 9-year-old ball boy who grew up in Denver and he wasn't interviewed for a job in 2022 in Mike McDaniel. So I feel like they have messed up. But it's funny, like, I don't know who wants to jump in first here, but like, statistically on the offense, it, like, on paper, it wasn't even that bad, which shows you how bad the whole thing actually is. The defense is atrocious. And there's already people asking me, like, and we'll call out some social media comments in a bit, but there's already people asking, will the Broncos draft for Caleb Williams? I don't think they're that bad of a team. This is what pisses me off. I do not think they're that bad. So they
That's why
need
it
to
doesn't
find
make
the
any
coaching
sense. They're
element.
not a bad team. I agree with you.
It's difficult. Who wants to jump in first? Go for it.
No, I will say that, like, if you think about all the weapons that they do have in terms of offense, they have Russell Wilson, they have Jerry Judy, you know, they have all these players on offense, and then it's just the defense. Like, I don't think I could name a defensive player on the Broncos except for Patrick Surtain. So I do agree with you, Michael, in the sense that I do think it's the defense. I do think Wilson's still a little bit rusty. He's still not kind of at the height that he should be for what they traded for and how he played at the Seahawks. I don't know why that is. I do always say that I do think Wilson is more concerned about his own profile image rather than for who he's playing and winning Super Bowls. I think he'd rather win an MVP than a Super Bowl. But you know, even if that is the case, should be playing a lot better. But I do agree that it does seem to be more on the defensive side. You know, the Broncos did put up points today, and sometimes the amount of points they put up, the 20 or so that they got, would win a game. But it was just they're up against such a potent offense that the defense had to play better, and the defense should honestly be ashamed that they let the Miami Dolphins make a show of them by putting 70 points past them.
That just screams to me, real quick, Michael, that screams to me just what you said, Michaela, that screams to me like an uncomfortable dressing room, a dressing room that's not together, a team that's not cohesive.
Well, they're
not listening to each other. I can imagine what that dressing room is going to be like. Exactly what you said. It's going to be beyond shame. It's going to be guys going in there and just being like, you know, this is absolute BS. This is whatever. They're shouting at each other, screaming at each other, you know, get in the car and leave, don't even shower.
Well, there was definitely a defensive-offensive split last year. We were told that in person by a player, like 100%, they don't talk to each other. So I'm sure, like, they're not the only team in the league like that, but that is definitely something that's been there. I would say in defense of the defense, you know, you've got Randy Gregory, you've got Jonathan Harris, DJ Jones, Alex Singleton, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons. That's not good enough to go to Miami and give up 70 points, as good as the Dolphins are. The Dolphins are scoring points for fun with Mike White and the backups. That, for me, is an issue with Vance Joseph. And I don't personally think for people, fans of the NFL, listening to this podcast, looking to listen to the biggest storylines, I feel like they're more deserving of talking about different games, because I feel like this Broncos team is not going to go anywhere. So I'll certainly try and go into more detail this week on it. But shall we move on to the crack? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about them anymore either.
Well done to the Dolphins. That was a superb offensive performance. If they keep that up, sweet Jesus. Imagine. Right. Anyway, let's move on. I've definitely enjoyed that one. Well, let's move on to Minnesota against the LA Chargers. Right. I'm going to say two things. Like, first off, Michaela, for me, I'll back up and I'll say what I thought. I thought the Vikings would win this game. I still hold the opinion that, for me, Brandon Staley would have lost his job if he lost this game. No doubt about it. For him to go for it on 4th and 1 on their own 24-yard line is one thing. But then secondly, for the Minnesota Vikings, at the end of the game, on 4th and 5 with 42 seconds to play, when the ball was caught for a first down, there was 34 seconds. I haven't got the exact timing on it. But TJ Hawkinson, for him to stand and be so chilled, they had no timeouts left. What the hell are you doing? They get to 12 seconds to go. They don't spike the ball, and they just play on, and then the ball's intercepted. I feel for the fans in Minnesota. I don't want to go into a discussion around this, but I certainly feel that Kirk Cousins might be playing for a different team in a few weeks if they get their brains out and start doing something that certain team, which we'll talk about in a bit. But just a real show, Michaela. A real, people in the Republic and the radio can say it, so I'll say it in this, a shite show on both sides of the ball, like for both teams, because it was such a yo-yo game where it could have went either way. But if I'm Brandon Staley, I'm a happy man this morning because he got away with it in the end of it.
He did get away with it. The first thought I had at the final whistle when the Chargers got the interception kind of in their own end zone was that Brandon Staley just survived another week. He probably should be gone. To be honest, I wouldn't care if they won. I'd still sack him because honestly, to go for 4th and 1 in your own kind of 20 yards, 30 yards from your own end zone is just shocking and it's just stupid. Like, honestly. And then, you watch that game and it's kind of like those teams needed to win. Like, they both needed wins. And I do feel bad for Kirk Cousins because he's not playing awful. He's making good plays and it's all these tip passes that are getting intercepted. So, I agree with you kind of. Like, if I was Cousins, I'd be like, okay, like the Vikings are a great team. I have the best wide receiver in the league. I have weapons kind of everywhere and we're 0-3. Like, if they'd won tonight, I think, it would have been good for them. I think they would have went on a roll then and kind of, been in a position to make the playoffs. But now looking at them and kind of it's weird because you don't know what it is. Like, they have a good head coach, he's not like Brandon Sadie where people are asking for his head. They have good players, they have good quarterback, they have the best wide receiver. So it's like one of the teams, like, you can look at the other teams and point at what it is and why they're losing. We look at the Chargers and we say, well, it's the head coach, where the Vikings are kind of like, what is it with them? Like, why have they started 0-3? So is it just rust or whatever? But yeah, if they continue in this direction, if I was Kirk Cousins, I'd look to be traded to a certain New York team whose quarterback situation is just not going anywhere with who they have at the moment.
Which New York team, Michaela?
That's actually so fair.
Buffalo, yeah.
The Jets.
Honestly, you could say that statement, and depending on what fan you were, and well, obviously, if you just watched today and you watched the Pats versus the Jets, you would think that. But if that game hadn't happened today and it wasn't fresh in your head, you might be like, "Who's she talking about? Which team? This is interesting."
Well,
they were.
Connor, Thursday night was a disgrace. Can I just put it out as an NFL fan? First off, for that game to be on Amazon Prime Video on Thursday Night Football was a joke. But I don't know if you've seen this, Connor, because
Steve Bezos was pissed.
It's like, what's going on? What's
yeah,
going on?
I know. I don't know what's going on with them. I mean, I think there's definitely 3 good teams that try their absolute best to lose games. And that's the New York Giants, the Minnesota Vikings, the LA Chargers. For some reason, you just feel like you're like, okay, who's going to lose this? That's what I was thinking today. And I'm sure you guys were kind of thinking something similar going down into the 4th quarter. Like, I wonder who's going to lose this. Like, not who's going to win. I wonder who's going to lose this game, because it seems like both of them are trying desperately to lose, except for the quarterbacks, except for Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert, who kind of seem like they are with it. They're making accurate passes. They're good quarterbacks. They're reading the game, but the rest of the teams just seem like, I don't know. Now maybe the Giants, because of their injuries, aren't necessarily as good and they're more expected to lose now. But yeah, they would be the 3rd team that I would kind of put on that list.
Well, it like, Connor, you play football, right? Was that the worst time management you've ever seen in your life tonight?
In which game? Sorry,
in the Vikings Chargers game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was all over the place. It was, even just that last pass to Hackinson, and it kind of bounced around and then got caught. I was just kind of like, what is going on in this game? Like, it was, and it looked like the Chargers kind of looked comfortable for a while again, same as last week, and yeah, it was bad. It could go back to Michaela's point. Michaela, I kind of agree with you on the head coach point of view. Like, I feel like it's almost like in soccer terms, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he'd win a game for United, but it'd be like a bad win. Do you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't a good win. That was kind of like they just about didn't lose. So I'd be kind of same as you. I'm like, well, is this the path we want to stay on? Because this is the path we're on if we stick with this head coach.
We've got some comments about this. I'll read them out because I'll forget if I don't. Biff is saying the Chargers coach gave us a great last few minutes of entertainment. Please don't fire him. And I think that's the only one from that game. There's a lot about the Broncos.
If you're honestly, the only people who don't want Staley fired is like opposition fans, like like the teams in their division, like everyone in the NFL probably be like, okay, if Justin Herbert had a competent head coach, we'd have to actually worry about the Chargers. But the fact that they have Staley, we wouldn't have to worry about him. So I think, honestly, if I was a Chargers fan, I would have wanted them to lose that game. Even my girlfriend was like, "Why did you pick the Vikings to win? Like in our picks thing, like you love the Chargers." And I was just kind of like, they're just like, I have no faith in the Chargers, and they're one of my favorite teams in the NFL. So I would have preferred if they lost tonight, because then that probably would have been more certain for Staley to have been fired tomorrow. But
I guess for me as a fan, first off, you want to see Herbert play well, and you want to see the Chargers do well. So if that's what has to happen, that's what has to happen. I can't see it happening now because of what's happened, and I think with the stretch of games that they have going forward, I think he's there to the end of the year. So time will tell now. But I do think like today was a pendulum moment. In terms of what you said, Michaela, Connor at ConnorB141 on X/Twitter was basically saying, would you still fire Brandon Staley for making that call? The play on fourth down, 4th and 1 from the 24, for me was like a F it. I'm screwed no matter what. Let's go for it. Like, just, it's actually anger in me talking about it. It's like,
I can't fire him for making a call and then it working out. It's not that one call. It's the rest of the thing that's happening around that. The call is a bit mad. Don't get me wrong, but like, I'm not firing because he made a gutsy call and it kind of worked out. Well, it was called a risky call.
It was like walking into the bookies with your last tenner and going, "There's a horse." Right.
Namibia versus New Zealand. Can I get everything on Namibia?
18 plus, please be gamble aware. Right. We're going to have the final topic on this segment, and then we'll move on to like another segment for the podcast. A team that I did not think that we'd be talking about in this way, but I'm glad we are. A team that don't get enough love. In 2019, before COVID, etc., had a bit more hair in my head and not such a raspy voice. I took my dad to Wembley to see the Houston Texans against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life, and it cost 260 quid a ticket in Club Wembley. I feel like as a fan or as a neutral, I was repaid a little on this today. Let's talk about the Texans, all of us first. For them to go out and get the first win of D'Amico Ryan's coaching career, putting 37 points on the board against the Jacksonville Jaguars team. We can say whatever we want about the Jaguars, Michaela, but offensively for the Texans, CJ Stroud, 2 touchdowns, 280 yards. Tank Dell looks superb.
Sorry, he's from Ohio. Massive Ohio fan. CJ Stroud, he's doing unreal.
I thought you said, "Oh wait, something's happened." I was like, "Oh, okay." OHIO. It's I love it.
It's late. It's late in Ireland.
It's late in Ireland. I've been on the Slavia all weekend, so I can say that 22 minutes into a podcast. But we're here. We persevere. Michaela, the Texans offense certainly persevered, and I think shut a lot of people up, including myself. They look really good.
They do, and I think CJ Stroud did himself proud and kind of proved that all the talk's been about Anthony Richardson, so I think he can kind of say like, look, like, I'm a good quarterback as well. Like, I deserve to be drafted before him or kind of in the same bracket as him. I thought he played really well tonight. And the Texans played well because when my brother always comes to me for his NFL bets, and he was like, who is a surefire win? And I said the Jaguars against the Texans, because honestly, like, the Texans have a whole rebuild to go through. So, and the Jaguars got far enough in the playoffs for the Jaguars last year. So, and they have Trevor Lawrence, they have all these offensive weapons. I did think it would have been an easy game for the Jaguars to win, especially at home. But the Jaguars didn't play well. To lose to like a team that's rebuilding at home isn't a good sign. So I'm a bit concerned about the Jaguars going forward. But fair play to the Texans. They bet a division rival, and I think if they look at them, they look at the Jaguars, who are like people would think would at least go to the playoffs. They might like look at other teams now, and like at least those kind of mids to kind of pushing high tier teams, pushing into the playoffs. I think the Texans could look at them now and be confident that they could beat them. The same with the Colts tonight beating the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
But Connor, like, just jumping on what Michaela said there, a guy that we haven't even mentioned yet. We talk about Tank Dell. Nico Collins in his third year in the league looks like a bona fide stud. WR1 with CJ Stroud. Really like the Texans team, but going on, like if you want to talk about the Texans as well, but then jump on the Jags now go to London next week. We'll be there. Pro Football Ireland will be there for that game against the Falcons at Wembley, but more so, they've got that game, and for the first time ever, a team stays in the city, but they've got a hell of a team. The Buffalo Bills the week after. You hope for them it doesn't go south quick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would talk about. Let's look at two Ohio State quarterbacks real quick, and let's talk about the Texans. So you got CJ Stroud and you got Justin Fields. People's feelings about Justin Fields have probably changed quite a bit from the beginning of the season to like week 3 now. He's getting destroyed. He's getting pressured. And then when he's actually not pressured, he feels like he's going to be pressured, so he misses open passes. CJ Stroud, on the other hand, wasn't even sacked today. Had very little pressure. He's got an unbelievable offensive line compared to the Bears. So if you're going to let a guy who's that good, and like Ohio State like breed quarterbacks, they really do. They have a lot of depth there, and he's just going to sit there and do it. And he's got someone like Collins, like you said, Michael, who's on flying form. And when you have a quarterback who's good and has time, it's like anything else. Like Josh Allen usually has quite a lot of time. Patrick Mahomes has tons of time. Patrick Mahomes can escape too. So yeah, it's a little bit exciting about the Texans. I don't know if I'm like super excited about them yet, because they were playing the Jags, let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? But it's kind of exciting. Like we were saying, Michaela, like they look like a team that could push, to be competing. I don't think anyone was really kind of thinking that a whole lot a few weeks ago. So exciting times for them. Yeah, be interesting to see what they do and how CJ Stroud comes along. So we're probably hearing a lot of like offensive rookie player of the year and all this sort of stuff now with him. So
we'll see. Like the AFC South, man, could be tight. It could be tight because we'll talk about the Ravens and the Colts they're on, but it feels like the pendulum could swing a little bit, and there's so much talent there, so much rookie talent. So we'll see. Congrats to the Texans. I don't think anybody thought they were going to go in there today and put down a 30 or 40 bag against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So fair play. And I'm going to retire from picking teams in week 3 of the season. Right, this is the end of this segment on the podcast, folks, presented by 888 Sport. If you're listening to this, Jeff Reinbold's coming to Ireland for a 6-date run in January. Phoebe Schecter's coming to Belfast in November. I should have a voice by then, so it should be good. linktr.ee/NFL Ireland if you'd like tickets, and we'll chat to you soon. For people on the video, here starts another topic. Pro Football Ireland Monday Morning Football Part 2 of our podcast. Michael McQuaid, Michaela Fake, and Conor Mangan, presented by 888 Sport, the official betting partner of the NFL. Bit of a few weird weeks now with the London games coming up, and we had a full-on schedule on week 3 Sunday in the early window, so we're focusing on these games. If you want reaction to the late games, there only is 2 or 3 of them. And Sunday Night Football between the Steelers and the Raiders. I'll be live with Jeff Reinbold Monday night, 9 p.m. IST, 4 Eastern. Let's get right back into it, and let's talk about some different games in the league this week. The New York Jets played the New England Patriots, folks, on Sunday, and it was an interesting game for many reasons. I felt like there was a real... Like there was not love lost between like the Jets defense and Mac Jones. I could see a pure hatred there. The weather was atrocious. Patriots getting top 15-10. Michaela, the Patriots desperately needed this win. Like there is no way in saying otherwise. They were 0-2, like unthinkable for Bill Belichick to go into a season 0-2. So if they went to 0-3, it would have been crazy. They were really bogged down with a spate of penalties. Some third down throws were sort of poor with Mac Jones. They really allowed the Jets to stay alive, and I feel like the Jets are a conversation for like another go round on this. But Patriots defense looks fantastic. Matthew Judon, looks legit. The offense needs to play better, but certainly the Patriots defense will get them wins this season, and we've seen that as an example today, getting over the line in New Jersey.
Yeah, I think watching that game, and you can kind of see by the score, it was 2 teams playing each other who are struggling, which is crazy to think because a lot of people had the Jets going to the Super Bowl this year simply because they brought in Aaron Rodgers. But I always said, no, it's not that easy. And I think everyone can see now that it's not that easy. It is definitely the quarterback that's the issue. But, injuries happen all the time. And I don't think anyone expected to be watching week 3 and guessing the Patriots would beat the Jets if you were to ask before the season begun. I kind of knew going into the game that the Patriots would win, even though they were 0-2 and the Jets are 1-1, just simply because Zach Wilson isn't a good quarterback. He's not like a good enough player to get you wins, kind of even against mediocre teams. Because, like, let's be real, the Patriots kind of need a little bit of an overhaul as well. They're always just kind of, and they're in such a tough division, like they're in with the Bills and they're in with the Dolphins, and they're both playing very well this season, especially the Dolphins. So I think looking at the Patriots, I was kind of surprised. Now, I'm not too sure. I was watching Red Zone, so I didn't, but I was actually surprised that I didn't hear Zeke's name called a lot, Elliott.
They're kind
it was
of
more
playing him a little bit and playing him not.
Yeah, it was more every time Red Zone were showing a Patriot run, it was Stevenson, it was the other guy, and I'm kind of like, why are you bringing in Ezekiel Elliott and then not kind of, that's the time to use him to, just ram him, keep like run him down the Jets' throat, basically. So, and it was, I think, like this would have, if the Patriots lost, it would have been the first time since Belichick took over that they went 0-3 in the start of the season. I think the Patriots can beat teams like the Jets, those teams that are kind of struggling to find, their identity at quarterback. I think the Patriots are always kind of beat them teams. Like I was about to say, for example, the Texans, but I wouldn't even say the Texans could lose to the Patriots now. Like I think the Patriots are really, really need to just do something to kind of bring them. I don't even think they'll ever get back to they were at the dynasty stage, because that was, I think now, Tom Brady. That was just Tom Brady basically, and not, they always say it was a Bill Belichick or was a Tom Brady, and I think Tom Brady has proved that it was more him than Belichick. Like Belichick's an amazing coach, don't get me wrong, but for Brady to go to the Buccaneers in his first year and win a Super Bowl, and for the Patriots just to kind of fall off their pedestal is proof enough in that theory. But the Patriots definitely need to do something, because if they're in a division that has Josh Allen for the foreseeable future, has Tua for the foreseeable future. It's going to have Aaron Rodgers probably next year or for the next 2 or 3 years. So they need to make a big change, whether it be a head coach, whether it be a quarterback. I don't know, but they need to do something.
Like, I am going to move to a different topic here, but we will come back to that dynasty talk. I think it was a mix, personally. I think their biggest downfall is not replacing Tom Brady, but certainly I think it was a mix. I think Belichick's the best ever coach ever. Pains me to say it. And, Connor, I think certain podcasts and certain outlets will focus on the Zach Wilson story, which we will talk about in a minute. I think it's important to talk about. We'll talk about it after this here. We'll go into more detail on it. But, in week 1, when the Patriots hosted the Eagles, they held Jalen Hurts to only 170 yards passing. AJ Brown had 79 yards. In week 2, they picked off Tua. They held Tyreek Hill, who had an unbelievable Sunday this week, to only 40 yards. And on Sunday, they held Garrett Wilson to only 48 yards and 0 touchdowns. Is this the best defense in the league? Because I think, personally, they're a quarterback and a half-decent receiver away from challenging. That's how good this defense is. Defense wins championships. For everyone being down on the Patriots, Matthew Judon looks exceptional. Their defense today was superb.
Yeah, they were very good. I was kind of flicking between that game and the other games, but I mean, they're winning them the games, and great teams and great defenses win championships. You got to start with that, unless you're the Chiefs and you're Patrick Mahomes. But other than that, you do actually need to have a great defense, and you need to be really well coached. Obviously, Bill Belichick's a great coach, and I think he's showing that you can get somewhere with a guy like Mac Jones if your defense plays great, and kind of do all those things. So yeah, I was like, I'm kind of getting a bit more impressed with the Patriots. Offensively, they still look like, I want to say slow. I know it's the wrong word, but they just feel like kind of slow, or like maybe sluggish, kind of lethargic. I don't know what it is, but they just seem kind of not quite like zippy like the other teams are, the great offensive team. So yeah, maybe you're dead right, like a good wide receiver away, and maybe a quarterback. I mean, Mac Jones, I don't know, but it doesn't look like he's the guy. We've seen him for a while now, and I don't think he is the guy. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them.
Oh, that was me. Just with the old delay there. Delay of game, delay of stream. Sorry, folks. For people wondering, like Michaela actually had like issues beforehand. I'm so glad we got them worked out because there was like a 7-second delay. So we're here. Right. I agree with you. But the reason I mentioned Thursday Night Football on the last segment of the podcast was because there was such an interesting conversation between Fitzpatrick, between oh my God, I've lost the names. Who's in Thursday Night Football? Richard Sherman. I'm too tired for this. Anyway, they were all complaining and talking about Zach Wilson and how they cannot believe, as former players in the league, Tony Gonzalez as well, saying that how the hell have they not picked up the phone and got a guy for this year? You can talk about next year, but this year matters. I'm sorry, Michaela, you said a second ago about the Jets being like quarterback away. I still think if they had somebody in there right now, I think they go really, really deep. The question is two elements. Who could that be? And secondly, is Robert Saleh came out on Sunday and said that Zach Wilson is still his guy. What is he smoking? Can someone please give me an answer? What's going on in New York, folks?
Like I do agree with you that they're only a quarterback away, because we all know if they had Aaron Rodgers, they'd probably be 3-0 right now, and they probably would have annihilated the Patriots today, because the Patriots aren't the best team. But I think what they're doing is, I don't necessarily blame them for what they're doing, because I said that it is a bit unfair that Wilson only got 2 or so years and they still need to see if there's anything there with him. So I think they're taking this opportunity now that Rodgers has gone down. He's most likely he's going to be back next year. So I think what Salah and kind of the rest of the Jets organization are doing is they're kind of, I know, Wilson didn't have a lot of time with Aaron Rodgers, but for someone to come in and to be drafted second overall, and then for them to bring in one of the greatest quarterbacks because they don't believe in you to be the quarterback of the future, you think that would put a chip on his shoulder. And Brady was saying everything being personal, so I don't blame them wanting to see if Wilson reacted to that or to see if he learned anything from that time he's had with Rodgers, but it's clear that he hasn't. So I think the Jets will probably play him for a few more games and then be like, okay, look, there's nothing here with this kid. We can trade him. There's no point in keeping him on this contract. We can trade him at the end of the season or whatever. But I don't blame them for seeing if there's anything there with him. But I think now in the next game or two, they should pick up the phone and bring someone in.
Remember though, Wilson, Zach and Garrett beat probably the best team in the NFL in week 1. Yeah. Let's remind ourselves of that for a second. That was a hell of a game. It was the first game, and they did it. So there's something there.
But he's been crap since. I think, and I want to jump in this before you give yours. Don't trade him, but sit him again, and get Kirk Cousins in for the rest of the year, and then sort.
Is Kirk Cousins going to go there? Would you go to the Jets for Kirk?
Well,
Cousins?
if you look at the financial hit with Minnesota at the minute and the repercussions long term for them. I think if you're Kirk Cousins, go and try and win a ring. You're not going to win a ring this year in Minnesota. Go and win one. Go and try and win one, as my voice goes. What do you think, Connor?
Well, I think Justin Jefferson would be pissed. He'd be like, "Oh my God, I lost Kirk Cousins. What am I going to do?" And like Hackensack is playing unreal as well. So I'm kind of we already talked about Minnesota being like it's strange why they're losing games, and they shouldn't be losing games. But yeah, I mean, if he goes there, it'd be incredibly exciting. I'm still holding out for Brady though. I got Brady at plus 10,000, so I'm gonna stick with Brady as the next New York Jets quarterback.
If he
don't bet on that, be gamble aware.
If he comes back, he's going to lose the kids, not just the wife. That's shocking if that happens. Buffalo, Washington. I'll for my voice, I'm going to keep this very light going forward. 2 elements, Michaela. Buffalo looked fantastic offensively, but defensively, that was a hell of a game. Terrell Bernard is the first player in the NFL to have 2+ sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery in a single game. since Bears Hall of Fame linebacker, the great Brian Urlacher. Their defense looks great. 38 points on the board. I'm not going to sit here and be negative about Washington. I like Sam Howell. I want to see him be given more time. I can't wait to see Buffalo in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think definitely Buffalo will bounce back from their loss to the Jets. But to shut out the Commanders is like the Commanders are always said to have, like a good defense. So the fact that they put up that many points against them is good. Josh Allen's and Stephon Diggs are, playing well together. There seems to be no kind of tension from last season when Diggs threw his little hissy fit. It seems to have just lightened the fire inside them, which is good to see. But I will say, someone showed me their bet today and they had the Bills to win, and they said, oh, but I think, the Commanders could possibly mess that up. They could be a dodgy team because of Sam Howell. And I was just sitting there and I'm thinking, like, I know people like Sam Howell, but like, chill out. Like, he's not, do you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
give him, like if he does what a Brock Purdy does and doesn't lose a regular season game for like however many games he goes to the playoffs with the Washington Commanders, then yeah, you can all start talking about him. But like, I still don't rate the Commanders. They're just kind of that team that are just kind of like the Patriots. They're just kind of like hovering between like mediocre, and they're just missing some unknown.
Well, Michaela, if you gave Washington, let's say another half decent receiver, and they gave him a good quarterback, I would be super excited for them.
Yeah, like if they had Kirk Cousins, for example, that you'd be excited about them. But
why do we love Kirk Cousins so much in this podcast?
Because he's a beautiful looking man, and I love him after the Netflix show. Can I just say, he had 4 interceptions on the day, but something like, I love his desire, Connor, when he's on the field. I really like, you can see Sam Howell is trying to learn on the job. The whole thing with Washington's a write-off this year anyway because of the ownership change, and give him some time. He looks like a lad from Cavan in the Odeon the Friday night.
He does, but why write them off? You got Robinson, who's playing unbelievable at running back. I think he's kind of surprising everyone. They're solid. Like I would have thought too. I thought Bills and Commanders, just like your buddy Michaela, I thought that was a trap game. My trap game last week, I think, was with the Lions. I honestly thought that was a trap game. I'm like, oh, this might be a bit scary. And then I remember dropping into the group chat. I'm like, I think Buffalo actually might be one of the best teams in the NFL. Yes, they lost week 1, but they've looked unreal since then and like somewhat untouchable. And they just score a lot. And Diggs, if you're talking about like Jefferson being like one of the best wide receivers in the league, Diggs was with Minnesota before that, and he was amazing. He's right up there too, probably top 5. So sky's the limit for Buffalo, maybe. We'll see.
We will see. There's been not much stuff to talk about tonight. I want to make sure that we get everything in and everything correct in terms of analysis. With the, I guess in terms of my voice, I'll just ask you, is there anything else from today that you find interesting? Michaela, I picked the Titans to win against the Browns. I personally thought that they would make it a wee bit tighter than that. They were outplayed, but more so, Deshaun is getting a lot of hate for the way that he started his career again this year. The Browns showed both offensively and defensively on Sunday that they have so much more there than a quarterback. That Amari Cooper play was weird because whenever he caught it, he was in bounds, and they should have given it as a touchdown, or he should have let the game play on. Look, the Browns are there. I think for me, the really frustrating thing is the Tennessee Titans. They seem to be so close, but yet so far. And this is going to be Ryan Tannehill's last year in Tennessee. You'd like to see it not end on such a sour note.
Yeah, the Titans played really poorly today in the sense of Tannehill only had about 100 yards. Derrick Henry, who's probably one of the best running backs in the league, easily top 5, only had 20 yards. If he's your biggest weapon and you're only utilizing him for 20 rushing yards, you're doing something wrong. And then, you bring in DeAndre Hopkins, who was, the commentators are saying he's been one of the best wide receivers in the league for the last decade, and he only had 48 yards. Like, they're just not utilizing their players enough. And I feel it's not like I want to blame the coach because Mike Vrabel's a good coach. I think he needs. It's weird to think that the Titans were, in the AFC Championship game a few years ago, and they were always playoff contenders for the
They
last
were
2
hell of
years,
a
and
team
it's
a
kind
couple
of.
of years ago.
Yeah,
Hell
and
of
it's not
yeah.
it's not like they lost anybody. They didn't lose Tannehill. They brought in Tannehill to replace
Mhm.
Mariota, and that's why they got to the playoffs. And it's like no one's left really, except for like they probably lost a few kind of players. They obviously lost AJ Brown and stuff like that, but they brought someone in the draft to replace him. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins, so it's like it's a weird one, kind of like the Vikings. Like you don't know what the issue is with them. It's not the head coach. It's most likely it is the quarterback. They need to bring in a better quarterback. Probably should bring in Kirk Cousins if we're all so obsessed with him. They probably play a lot
Kirk
better.
Cousins everywhere.
Kirk Cousins everywhere, and every team's guaranteed to go to the playoff with Kirk Cousins if they already have a strong foundation around them. But yeah, the Browns, Amari Cooper is honestly like every time the Browns are on red zone, it's always him making a play. He's easily the best player. Him and Miles Garrett are the best players for the Browns at the moment. But yeah, I'd
You
be.
don't like Jerome Ford?
I just think like kind of today, like Amari Cooper just kind of stepped out. He just he
Yeah, I agree.
just steps out or stands out to me more than anyone else in the Browns.
Did you see the play in the second quarter whenever Deshaun Watson was spiked, or they got the ball, snapped it, and Deshaun Watson had the ball and had time? He could have ran forward, and he ran 15 yards back. $230 million guaranteed. Now, for me right now, for people in the podcast, if I'm a Browns fan, I tell you what, that's
He's blessing
They
himself
were
if he can't see it.
they were actually saying there was some reporters saying today that the Browns could find a loophole to get out of that guaranteed contract if he keeps getting fined or he gets fined and misses games because of unsportsmanlike conduct and stuff like that. And they were saying that the Browns could loophole their way out of that guaranteed money.
But 27 to 33, 289 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Solid. Deshaun got it done.
He's a good
I have to
quarterback.
like it.
Look, we're very biased on the show. We obviously love Kirk Cousins, and we're going to be selling Kirk Cousins merch soon. So just keep an eye out for that. But obviously, Deshaun Watson is a really good quarterback. They just had a horrific injury that we haven't talked about yet. But poor Nick Chubb, absolutely love Nick Chubb. Great at Georgia, was doing amazing. Had a history of knee injuries, and good lord, don't look it up if you're anyway a bit squeamish. Probably career is going to be over. So you're like, okay, we've built this around kind of Deshaun and Chubb because they're kind of our two best players. That's what I thought anyway, because Deshaun can run, he can pass, and Nick Chubb was amazing. Ford steps in, and today he's like receiving and he's running. That little shift he did, that little like fake slant for the touchdown, was absolutely magnificent. He kind of kept his hips the same way, kind of just turned slightly different direction, and I was very impressed with them. And then the other game I kind of wanted to talk about was the Colts and the Ravens. Colts and Ravens was kind of a fun game. I think everyone was thinking at the beginning, like, oh, God, like everyone was drooling. You could hear it from their mouths over Lamar Jackson. He was fantastic and et cetera, et cetera. And it was all going brilliant. And then just like Ravens do, they just go off for some reason down the Richardson against the Colts, who had missing their starting quarterback, Andrew Richardson. And you're kind of like, what is going on? And I don't want to go like too much into detail because I know we're kind of limited on time, but it goes right down to the wire. You have, I don't think he's the most expensive kicker in the league, but he is the greatest kicker of all time, Justin Tucker, from 61 yards out, right down the middle, 2 yards short. A great kick. I think he got slightly under it. The ground was a little bit wet. The ball, too, in case you don't know about American footballs, similar to GA balls, are literally made of leather, so they absorb water. So when you go to kick them, especially when it's wet, much harder to hit them. He set the record for 66 yards 2 seasons ago. It was absolute cracker off the crossbar. He can hit them from 17 practice, but when it's wet on a Tuesday night in County Kerry, Justin Tucker can't get it done. But that was an amazing game, an incredible finish, went to overtime. If you were a Ravens fan, you went on Twitter, like it was all of them go from loving Lamar Jackson. I don't know if any of you guys noticed this, Michaela or Michael. They love Lamar Jackson. They love their team. They love Flowers. They love everything. The minute they start effing up, we hate it. This is crap. Why do we have him? This is awful. We need to trade for Kirk Cousins immediately.
I will say that when I was watching the game, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'm too harsh on the Ravens. Maybe they're going to be like top of the AFC North. And then they just went absolutely off the wall and just
They
lost
did what
to the
Ravens
Colts.
do.
They do what
It's
Ravens
it's
do, and
such
they
a
just always
Ravens
mess
thing.
up.
It's
Such a
it's
Ravens
such
Everyone
a
thing.
gets
Ravens
so
thing.
excited for them because they see what Lamar can do, which is like unbelievable. Like I don't think we've really had a quarterback. Michael Vick was kind of doing it, but we haven't really had a quarterback that looks like him, that moves like him, that can pass like him, that can play like him. But also we've had plenty of quarterbacks that kind of screw up like him, and he just seems to do it at like the strangest times when everything's going great. So it's kind of a strange one. But yeah, poor Justin Tucker. It was a good evening, though, for most kickers. A lot of the soccer players doing well. Brandon Aubrey's kicking very well right now. And Matt Gay actually hit the game winner in that for the Colts. He's a former soccer player, too. Trained a few times in San Diego. So good for Matt Gay. I'm kind of happy at the Colts because they have been fighting well and their starting quarterback was out. And if there's any quarterback that we love on this podcast other than Kirk Cousins, is Gardner Minshew. He is just a beautiful,
We love Gardner.
beautiful man.
Just to shout out a guy from Ireland, from Dublin, who was with his partner at the game, and Andy Woe. Andy is a huge Colts fan, and he came to our college football tailgate. So big shout out to Andy. He's got a
Good for
great
you,
video
Andy.
of him. He's got a great video of him reacting to it. It's on our social accounts. I'm now going to go and try and steal it for TikTok. So hopefully, please say yes, Andy. We have not talked about the Lions or the Packers or a few different things as well. Do you want to talk about Dan Whelan before we go? Very quickly,
yeah, real quick.
Connor?
Green Bay down 17-0 going into the fourth quarter, and then they won 18-0 or 18-17. Absolutely amazing. Daniel Whelan had a pretty decent game. Unfortunately, he did have a punt return for a touchdown. Decent punt, kind of decent location. Don't know if his runners were kind of up to speed with him. He kind of tried to make the tackle, but the Saints were too quick. But yeah, they came back and won, probably because Derek Carr went down. Looked like kind of a stinger first. I don't know. It didn't look really bad in the shoulder, but he stayed down. He stayed out. And we were kind of half joking in the group chat. I wonder if Jameis Winston's actually going to ruin this for the Saints. He may not have ruined it all by himself, but yeah, Green Bay won. They rolled the dice. They went for 2 on their second touchdown that they scored to go 17-11 and then managed to score again to go 18-17. Well done, Daniel Whelan. Another win for Ireland, just as good as against South Africa yesterday.
Some serious horseplay yesterday and today as well. So please, Jesus, here, there'll be no Monday morning football in 5 weeks' time.
Exactly.
just
Well,
also-
if Johnny Sexton gets injured, though, do you know who we could bring in at half?
Anybody.
Kirk Cousins.
Wow.
Michaela,
Cousins
can do anything.
You've got a very important thing to mention, I believe.
I have a very important thing to mention. This is bigger. Yes, if you are watching the video,
is it though? Like, I am not a Swiftie.
Michael, this is bigger than literally any of the games. This is bigger than the Colts one in overtime. This is bigger than the Commanders being shut out. This is bigger than the Dolphins going and getting 70 points. Taylor Swift was at the Chiefs game with Kelsey's mom. And when I saw that, the gasp that came out of me, my girlfriend looked at me and thought something was wrong and that something happened. Because everyone, I know you don't know anything about Swifties, but none of us believed anything Travis Kelce said because we were like, no. We were like, no, he keeps talking about it too much now. He's just looking for attention. And then Taylor Swift turns around and is in the box with his mom. So I'm very excited. I kind of like the Chiefs now.
And currently up 31-0 against the not formidable Chicago Bears.
Oh, don't even start me on them. Can I just say 2 elements to that? Firstly, Taylor's grand. Can't get a ticket for the Aviva, but sure, it's grand. Secondly,
I'm going 3 times.
I met Donna.
Michaela, we're booting you from the podcast.
Now, Michaela's laptop's about to die, so if Michaela cuts off, that's why. But I met Donna Kelsey in February, and she was awesome, lovely in person, and she was just like a pure ma, like very, very proud of her sons.
You met Donna, and Donna's sitting in the booth with Taylor Swift right now. So you
sure, it's grand. But I will say, as people are wondering now, I was in Prague over the weekend. I was actually watching Ohio State against Notre Dame in an Irish bar. That's a whole conversation. But I got off the plane at Ryanair in Dublin Airport at 4:25 and was watching Red Zone in Tyrone at 6:24. But I opened up my phone. Michaela Fagan pops up, Super Bowl halftime, and I'm like, what in under of I want to make love in this club is going on here? Connor, maybe I'm showing my age as a 32-year-old man. I'm really happy about Usher had a headline on halftime for Super Bowl.
I've actually no problem with Usher. Usher is a fantastic performer and probably a better dancer. He is.
There was a rumor that it was Harry Styles, so I'm annoyed.
He might come out though. Like, they've been kind of blending it lately. There'll be like one or two guests.
Don't get me wrong. I was excited about Eminem last year, and he's kind of the same kind of age.
Right. And then Kendrick Lamar was just like randomly in a box and like popped out of the box halfway through the set.
Is this the one in LA with 50 Cent?
Yeah.
Like Michaela, you're talking about fangirling out. So I was at the very, 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 very back row of the stadium, and when 50 Cent came out of nowhere, I started screaming. It was incredible. I just think that, before my voice goes, that this is a Super Bowl that is the first ever in Vegas. It's such a big deal. I was surprised to not see Taylor Swift or Harry Styles or even the Rolling Stones, something huge. I thought there would have been like a big rock band. But look, we'll have to see Usher. I'm sure if we're sitting there looking at Usher, I'll be a happy man. Before we go, a shout out to 888 Sports, official betting partners of the NFL in Ireland and the UK. And for the Washington Commanders fans in Ireland and North and South, you did get a field goal. You were not shut out, so do not hate us. We love you. Is that all?
We do. I like the Washington football team.
So from all of us here at the Kirk Cousins Admiration Society, we will chat to you next week. It's weird because this is the last Monday morning football for a few weeks where it's not gonna be normal. You might have 2 or 3 guests on. It just depends. For example, we're in London the next 3 weeks, and then in Germany and stuff. So stick with us, but we will still be out in the Monday morning. Michael McQuaid, Michaela Fagan, Conor Mangan, chat to you soon, folks. Have a great week, and we'll be back on Monday night.
Well done, Ireland. Well done, Daniel Whelan.